think, yeah, watching that film, Tiananmen Mother's film, it made me think about how, how grieving is also a freedom. Everybody should have the right to grieve for your loss. And these people in China right now, they're being harassed for their grievances, for grieving for their sons and daughters. So I think something like that is one of the most basic freedoms of all. And I think another way to look at that is also, I think, the freedom to remain silent. When you get arrested, the police will tell you, you have the right to remain silent. And I think in China, and particularly in Tibet, I think many people not only don't have the right to express themselves, but actually don't even have the right to remain silent. And I think it's another level of oppression that goes even beyond what we see at the surface. And for example, in many of the monasteries in Tibet, I think when the Chinese authorities come around to make the monks sign these documents declaring that they are not going to be loyal to the Dalai Lama, denouncing the Dalai Lama, they have to do those things. They have to sign that document and they have to say those things. If they don't, they get in trouble. So basically, these people in these monasteries, they don't have the right to remain silent, And I think freedom of expression in general, I think because we're humans, I think the way we are born into this world, I think for every one of us, like if you look at it personally, it's the first freedom that we know. It's the first thing that we do, The first thing that babies do, they may not be able to understand what freedom of religion is, or they may not be, it'll probably take 3 or 6 months for them to understand freedom of movement. For Tibetan babies, it takes a long time. But every baby, the day they're born, the minute they're born, they cry. And in some cases, they laugh, And that's, I think, freedom of expressing ourselves as human beings. I think it's really the first original, primal kind of freedom. And that's why it's so important to defend that. And when we talk about defending this expression and freedom of speech, I think it's important to understand this not only as a right, not only as a treasure to be protected and defended. I think expression is also a tool to use for more freedom, And I think that's exactly the reason why dictatorships and tyrants, regimes like the Chinese government, they are really afraid of freedom of speech, more so than other kinds of freedoms. Because that's really key to all the other freedoms, in a way. And this is the tool through which people give and take information. And colonialism, imperialism, empires, their structures are supported by ignorance. They are based, the foundation is based on ignorance. It feeds on ignorance, That's why information is dangerous to them. And information is promoted and distributed by freedom of expression. So the minute we express ourselves, the minute the Chinese Tiananmen mothers express themselves in this way, the minute the Tibetans march in Lhasa in this uprising and express themselves, express their desire for freedom and independence, human rights, the minute people do that, the minute you speak, I think they're already winning, in a way. They're already taking action. So they're not victims. And I think it's important for us to see them as actors, as agencies of change, as heroes, rather than always as victims, So they're winning, but they need our help to complete their victory, because they're not completely successful yet. They're on their way. And here, our job and for people inside China and Tibet and East Turkestan, I think everybody's job has now been aided by the advances that we are making in technology. And I'm definitely not a tech expert. I'm the last person who should be speaking about this. But still, I think it doesn't really take a computer geek to promote freedom of expression by downloading Tor, for example. Anyone can do that. And there are these tools that can give people the required anonymity, the desired protection in some ways. And people inside, when they do that, they are not only protecting themselves, but I think they are protecting other people. And when we, for example, when we use Tor, every time we are using Tor or a tool like that, which confuses the governments on our location, where exactly we are, I think every time we blur the line, it helps people inside. And in a way, I know that most of us who live outside in free countries often feel hesitant to speak about what people inside should be doing, or what the Chinese democracy activists should be doing or should not be doing, or what the Tibetans should or shouldn't be doing. I think for them, it's important to realize that the more that people speak out, the more protection they buy for themselves, in a way. And sometimes it may seem like if any Chinese, if anyone inside is watching this, when it may seem like you can remain protected by being silent, and you're not harming anyone, you're not doing anything to anyone else, you're just minding your business by being silent. But actually, by not being silent, you can protect someone else. Because I think my silence makes your voice more of a crime than it should be, But when everyone speaks out together, when 3 of us speak together, the punishment is going to be lighter, or it's going to be harder to find the voices or the culprit, however you look at it. So in that way, I think the more that we can, break out of our silences and come out and take action, communicate, and use these tools that are really changing the way we look at the world, I think the more we can do that, the safer everybody can become. And we have to realize that whether or not we use the technology to our advantage, the oppressors and the dictators, they are already doing that to their advantage. So it's not a choice that we have. We have to do it. And finally, just very quickly, I think, for Tibetans and Chinese, Sharon, you talked about the conflict that is there, especially for a lot of the people who have never heard of the Tibetan issues or the Uyghur problems before last March and this July. And I think it's a conflict that's been created by the government. It's not something that's created by the people. It's not a problem that was created by the Uyghurs or the Tibetans or the Chinese people. And sometimes we seem to believe that unless we all agree together on one point, unless we all have the same opinions, we cannot have peace, which is what the government wants us to believe, which is what Chinese government wants us to believe. It's completely not true. We don't need uniformity to have peace. We can have peace, unity, all the things that we need amidst all the diversity and the differences of opinions. So we can have all the differences. We can have difference of opinions, and we can have arguments, so long as nobody puts you in jail for these arguments and these differences of opinions. So among ourselves, I think if we understand this as a basis for dialogue and discussion, and then the more we can talk with each other and share our ideas, the more you can come to our websites and blogs and read about how we see ourselves. And the more we go to you and understand how you look at us, I think it's not a problem that cannot be solved. It's completely possible.